if you want to be successful in business, look at what all the other businesses are doing and literally do the opposite.
Yeah.
So I get that most of your competitors are not getting the retainer. But can you see the benefit when you start getting the retainer? Because you will work less and earn more.
Warning, the Renegade Recruiter is not for the soft, timid, or faint-hearted. If you need permission or seek approval from your mother, spouse, mates in the pub, or anyone else for that matter, this really isn't for you. If any of what you've heard puts you off in the slightest, I advise you not to listen any further. You've been warned. Prepare yourself for the no bullshit, zero fluff. Quick, dirty, and uncensored secrets for any serious recruitment, staffing, and search business owner who wants to earn more money with less work and fewer headaches, without having to kiss ass or bend over backwards to please anyone. He's a relentless and fearless renegade who will stop at nothing to reveal the harsh, unforgiving, and brutal truth about what it really takes to succeed in this business. He's a guy people love to hate and hate to love. It's your host, Terry Edwards. The Renegade Recruiter is unleashed.
So hello and welcome to another episode of the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. I'm of course joined by Terry. Terry, how are you?
I'm fantastic, thank you, Drew. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. And we have a special guest with us today, Mike Meyrick, one of our clients. Mike, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good stuff. So Mike, just for anyone who doesn't know who you are, which would be probably most people listening to this, can you just give us sort of a brief introduction to who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I've been in the recruitment industry for the last 21 and a bit years. I started off life working as a recruiter within the financial services. I set up my own business initially in 1998, grew that business substantially. Got to a point where we had offices in London, Birmingham, Manchester, 25 staff, and it was a headache. And I, in about 2003, made a decision to reset up a business by myself. And one of the things that I was missing about when I was running a business with lots of people was the client and contact and candidate contact. And that was very difficult to have when you've got a team of 25 people in 3 different locations that you're managing. So since early 2004, I've been working as an independent recruiter, a small boutique firm that initially started operating in the financial services sector, where historically I had been very successful. And that up until 2007, 2008 was great. Lots of business, lots of clients, and financial crash came, and lots of clients, or the majority of clients that I was working with, ceased to exist. And for 12 months after that, went through a very tough time in terms of really recruiting for anything and anybody who would purport to pay me a fee. And for the last 4 years, I've been, nearly 5 years now, been building a business within the food ingredient sector, and started working with you guys back in, I think it was July, August last year.
That's right, yeah. Quick question, and just going back a bit, Mike, how did you actually get into recruitment in the first place? I always find that really interesting.
I think, like most people of my generation, recruitment was never a career that I'd planned to get into. I used to work for a financial services company, so for Merrick Express many years ago. And the business division that I was involved with was being moved to Brighton. At the time, I didn't want to relocate for family reasons. Negotiated my way out of there, spent a couple of months wondering what on earth I was going to do next, and was having dinner with some friends, and the brother of one of my close friends was running a recruitment business in Birmingham. And a good conversation with him. We talked about him potentially finding me a job, and the conversation then turned to, well, why didn't you come and join us and help us build a financial services recruitment business? I thought, well, I've never done anything like that. I'd always recruited people, but never been a recruiter. And I say that was 21 years ago, and this is what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah. And I'm interested, Mike, because so 21 years in recruitment. Here's a question for you. So you're in recruitment, you've been in it for 21 years, but if you could do any job in the world, any job, absolutely anything, what would it be?
I'd be a ski bum, a professional ski bum. But I can't afford to do that, so I'm a recruiter instead.
Yeah. Seriously, you enjoy skiing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's 1 week a year, and maybe 1 week and a long weekend a year. It's the one thing I really look forward to for 11 months of the year and get to do for probably 8 days a year.
Yeah, excellent. So you'd be a ski bum, right? Okay, I've made a note of that. I'm going to pass your CV on to appropriate agencies.
Yeah.
Let them know. Drew, up to you.
So, Mike, like, one of the reasons I was sort of keen to bring you on was because obviously you've had some really good wins in your business recently. But also, we were speaking a few months back, and you said that before you started working with us, or before you actually joined one of our programs, you'd been aware of what we do for a while. So, what was it that eventually made you sort of pull the trigger and join up with us?
I think there were several things. I think Terry had been in contact with me probably on and off for a period of about 4 years before I eventually joined and decided to work with you guys. Very persistent. We probably spoke once a year, and I always managed to put him off with one excuse or another. And I came to an event you ran last year, which was the market domination event. And which was brilliant, and really I got to a point within my business where I realized that as a recruiter, I'm a pretty good recruiter, and I've filled vacancies that have been deemed to be unfillable in many different areas of the world. The one thing it dawned on me that I hadn't been particularly good at was actually winning new clients. If I go back to when I first came into recruitment, you didn't have to work that hard to win clients. You pick up the phone, you'd win a client. And where I got to probably 18 months ago was to a stage where I'm thinking, well, how do I take the business beyond where it is? And where it was ticking along. And where I got to was a point where, to be honest with you, I was pissed off. And I was thinking, is this it? What am I doing, or what am I not doing? And I think having worked by myself for so many years without any input or external input from anybody else, I was very much blinkered to, particularly from a marketing and a client attraction point of view, how much things have changed in the last 15 plus years.
Yeah.
A couple of interesting points there. I was stalking you for 4 years, which I accept full responsibility. I certainly was stalking you for 4 years. I thought it was really interesting. But you mentioned earlier, Mike, that you've got what? Is it 20 years experience in the industry?
Yep.
Here you are with 20 years recruitment experience. I've been stalking you for 4 years. And look, here's a message in that for you as you're listening to this. Your clients will buy from you when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell. And one of the challenges that recruiters have and search firm owners have is they don't know when the clients are actually ready. And that's one of the powers of regular and consistent contact with your target market. So when they are in the market, you're going to be the first person. You're going to be forefront of their mind. So there's less and less straight away. And I think what you said there, Mike, about just ticking along, and then you say, "Is this it?" Drew will verify this. So many recruiters say that to us, don't they, Drew? That they're just ticking along, and they almost sometimes wake up in the morning and go, "Well, is this it? Is this all there is? I've been doing this for 4 or 5." I was talking to a guy, 10 minutes ago. He's been in business for 7 years, and his turnover hasn't changed well, it's gone down slightly over 7 years, and he's asking the same question as you, Mike. Is this it? And as you rightly said, it's not about how good you are at doing the recruiting. It's for your success. It's how good you are at attracting clients. So, from your point of view, Mike, what were the major challenges before we got together? What were the major challenges you were facing at the time?
I think there were numerous. I think, like, I mean, my business is executive search, so senior level recruitment, and I think typically you'd win a project. You'd work flat out for 6 to 8 weeks to shortlist that, then manage that process through. You get paid, and then you were sat there thinking, or I've got nothing to do for the next 2 weeks. Then you would run around like crazy. You would take any business that was thrown your way, regardless of what terms you were asked to work on. I suppose and I think I've heard it so many times from people in recruitment. It's the peaks and troughs.
Yeah,
it's going from. I mean, it's going from a bloody good 2 months to then 3 months with very little, or in some instances, no income, which is obviously any business is not ideal. So I think that was one of the major challenges, and I think the other challenge, numerous challenges, but I think one of the other key challenges was, and you touched on it there, is that clients will buy from you when they're ready to buy, and the amount of times I would pick up the phone to somebody and say, "Oh, we haven't spoken for the last 2 years." And they say, "Oh, we wish you'd phoned me 2 months ago. We've just put a mandate out to recruit 6 people." And you think, "Well, why do you think of me?" And you think, "Well, you haven't been in touch with us for 2 years." Obvious, really, but how frustrating is that?
Yeah, so true, so true.
Mike, what were you? So back then, what were you doing to market your business? Like, how did you, I guess, get your name out there? What were you doing in terms of promotion?
It would be a case of sporadic emails. There was no process in that. You'd see somebody advertise a job, and you think, "Oh, we could fill that," so you'd email them, and then you'd email them again. You'd never hear from them. A certain element of contact with old clients, with old contacts, but that was very much sporadic. There was no real structure to anything that I was doing. Which I must say I do have today. So,
like you say, there's no real structure in terms of results. So if you look sort of back then, how many, let's say, new decision makers were you speaking to in a month, an average month? How many sort of new prospects, new leads would you have conversations with?
Before working with you guys?
Before, yeah.
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm probably speaking to 2 or 3 a day.
Yeah.
Every day.
5 days a week. Excellent. And it's quite sad, actually. Again, Drew will verify this, is that a lot of clients we speak to, they will say they speak to 2 to maybe 5 new decision makers a month, and that's the real crux of their problem, is not speaking to sufficient decision makers. And now you're speaking to, you say 2 or 3 a day, Mike?
On average, 2 or 3 a day. And some of those are going to be, well, we don't use recruiters. We've got our own internal recruitment team. We've got a preferred supplier list. There's nothing, we're not recruiting for anything at the moment. But it's, I think no matter how you break it down, it's a numbers game. And if I'm speaking to 2 or 3 people a day, every day, and I'm doing that day in, day out, you're going to get to people where, and it happened to me this morning. Somebody said, "Oh, yes, we've just had a restructure in the business. That's going to drive out some recruitment needs. Can we speak further?" And that was the first time this week somebody's given me a positive, although I've spoken to people every day this week. But you, in any business, you don't need many of those wins to make a huge difference to your business.
Yeah.
And again, just to be clear, so the people that you're speaking to, none of them are cold prospects. Are you still cold calling?
No cold calling.
So everyone you pick up the phone to, they know who you are, and they're expecting your call as well.
Everyone I'm speaking to knows who I am. They're expecting my call, and from some of the marketing that we've been doing. In conjunction with you guys, you pick up the phone to someone and say, "Hi, it's Mike Meyrick." Oh, hi, Mike. Thanks for calling. How are you doing?
Yeah.
And you get that response. and you don't get that if you're picking up the phone cold calling. And if you're cold calling, chances are you can hardly get through to people.
Right. Exactly. And the thing I always say is, with the right marketing, rather than being the unwelcome pest or the welcome guest, you just gave a great example there. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So when you pick up the phone, they welcome you like a long lost friend, don't they, Mike?
On occasions, yes. But no, seriously, the response I get from people, even if they're not recruiting, even if they don't have a need right now, people are more than happy, I would say 99.9% of the time, to engage in a conversation.
Yeah. You just prompted me on something, actually, Mike. You talked. I was just thinking about something you said earlier about, I stalked you for 4 years, one way or the other. And you haven't mentioned the fact that I was outside your door sometimes, but that's very kind of you. But seriously, what were your reservations about working with us before you did? You must have had some reservations. What were your reservations?
I think that from the initial conversations you and I had about some of the marketing stuff that you were saying, oh, this is the way we work. It's a case of, well, I've never done that before. It's a case of, why should that work? I don't know. And it was a case of, if I'm going to, work alongside you guys, I suppose, what is the evidence that if I work with you, where is the upside? And from the referrals that you gave me and the testimonials, then upon further investigation, it became evident that I had to change something. However, the position I was in is I didn't know what I had to change.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mike. Again, we sort of know about what you were doing before, sort of your fears before joining the program. What have you found since? What's some of the marketing that you're doing at the moment that's getting you sort of some good results?
I think there are numerous things, Drew, and I think one of the things that from the market domination event that was the first event that I attended with you guys, one of the things that really stuck in my mind was the Parthenon effect, where if you have one route to market and that route to market isn't effective, or maybe not being effective today, what else are you doing? Whereas if you've got numerous different routes to market, if one of them doesn't work today, it doesn't matter, because you've got 4 or 5 other things that you're doing. So in terms of the marketing activity that we're doing at the moment, we go through the 10 before 10 process, building out the contacts. We run a series of direct email marketing activities. We've done a webinar which has been recorded and repurposed. We're doing some LinkedIn pay-per-click. We're doing some Facebook pay-per-click. We're sending out various different ebooks. I think we're on to the 4th ebook that we've got going out at the moment. We've done surveys on SurveyMonkey, like the SurveyMonkey, and numerous different things that are supporting all of those marketing activities. So from where I was, having probably one route to market, which on occasion worked, now I've got several different routes to market, which are starting to pick up traction and starting to work.
Awesome.
Yeah, interesting. And most recruitment and search firms you speak to, they've probably got 3 or 4 ways of getting business. So cold calling, MPC, perhaps a bit of networking, maybe a bit of word of mouth. Probably 4 ways of getting business. So you can use those 4 ways that everybody else is using. And you just mentioned there are probably another half a dozen, and most of them are automated as well. So you're not even actually doing. You just set them up, and your pay-per-click and so on. Just bringing in leads.
Yeah, that's all automated. A lot of that is outsourced as well. So I have it doesn't take any of my time to do. One of the other things I think worth mentioning is one of the things that I was very, very skeptical about was direct mail. Not email, but direct mail in the post mail, because nobody uses it anymore. Well, I ran a direct mail campaign. It was what we call a lumpy mail campaign, which included a series of promotional items that went out to a small selection of 50 people, and that has paid dividends. It's paid dividends in terms of raising my profile and contact with people. It's paid directly dividends in terms of winning 2 retained assignments with a brand new client that I'd never had contact with before. And it's also kept my profile in front of other people I'm still in contact with as prospective clients for the future.
Awesome.
But going back 12 months ago, I would have never thought of who does direct mail? Who would have thought of doing that?
So tell us a bit more about what you did in that direct mail campaign. I mean, you mentioned lumpy mail. I'm guessing that a lot of people listening to this won't actually know what that is. Can you explain sort of what you did, how many people you sent it to, and how you got those 2 retainers from just a list of 50 people?
Sure. I think
just to add to that, Mike, what it was worth as well. What's the 2 pieces of the business worth to you as well?
What in monetary terms?
Yeah.
2 pieces of business are worth over £50,000.
Awesome.
Which is not bad. And I think from the investment that it took me to get that, it's a very, very good return on investment. But I mean, the campaign that we put together, I identified probably 15 to 20 organizations within the sector that I'm operating in that I knew were large enough businesses to be able to afford the fees that I want to charge, large enough businesses to have a potential ongoing recruitment need. What we then did was identify in those businesses the top 3 or 4 key decision makers. So that was from CEO, vice president of HR, operations director, etc. So people who would be in a position to say, yes, we want to use your organization. So having gone through that, we then sent a 3-pronged direct mail approach to them. And each article of direct mail that went out had a promotional item with it. I mean, operating within the food ingredient sector, the first article that sent out was a little desktop grow your herb garden. And I think the title on that was grow your own management team. The second item that went out was a minty mouthwash or mouth spray, and that had a title on there, talent attraction management spray. And the third item that went out was a portable credit card sized phone charger. And I think the title on that was connecting you with the right people to grow your business. And all of those articles were branded with our company name, logo, with our contact details on there. And there was a series of messages that 3 different mails that followed on from that. That was then followed up with a 3-stage email approach for the people that we'd sent the direct mail out to.
Awesome.
So it was very structured. Timescales were set at the beginning of that. And I'm just in the process of putting together the next campaign, which will be starting early part of June.
Wow. Excellent. Now, if people are listening to this, if you're listening to that, just ask yourself this question. If you're competing directly against Mike, let me ask you the question. When was the last time you sent a letter to your potential clients? And I guess I'm going to say probably years ago. So straight away, Mike's going to stand above you and stand above the crowd because he's actually doing that. And a lot of people are very negative about direct mail, but here's something worth considering. The average opening rate on emails is about 30%. So majority of your emails never get opened. The average opening rate on direct mail is 3 times that. So it's about 95%. Think about that. Direct mail has a higher perceived value as well than email. It's so easy just to delete an email as it comes in. And it's memorable as well. You know, we've got evidence of clients using direct mail campaigns and their clients come back to them a month later, 2 months later, because you don't tend to, you know, Mike just talked about that. He sent out what we call lumpy mail. So he sent out a portable phone charger, the breath freshener, the plant, whatever. It's not a case of people reading this, putting it in the bin. And don't get wrong, some people will. But you see how you stand out from the crowd simply by that one method alone.
You're listening to the Renegade Recruiter Unleashed podcast. For show notes, additional resources, and podcast updates, head over to www.therenegaderecruiter.com.
Now, Mike talked about some of the other methods he's using as well, such as online. But what we know is that the more methods or more routes to market that you use, the more success you can have. As Mike said at the beginning, it's a numbers game. The more ways you reach out to your clients. If you're relying on the old-fashioned ways of cold calling, NPCs, word of mouth, and by the way, everybody else is doing well, how can you stand out from the crowd? That's a great example there. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we always say is that like selling recruitment service or selling search services isn't like rocket science, in that it's a service that your ideal prospects will eventually need. The important thing is to make sure you are the first person they think of when they are in a position to buy. And again, having, as we call it, the Parthenon effect, you're reaching these people from multiple angles, means that you might, so again, you send 50 direct mail pieces and you got 2 retainers. So it means that most people obviously didn't buy from you. But what can happen in a week, 2 months, whatever, is you'll be the first person they think of, because they think, oh, who was that guy who sent me the funny mouth spray or the herb garden or the whatever it happens to be. So it's about being top of mind all the time.
I think you're right, and I think the other thing, and it's something that I talked about with Terry when we were having an initial conversation, is that, you know, if you're selling executive search, and my average fee £25,000-30,000, you can't expect to pick up the phone to somebody cold and say, give me £25,000-30,000.
Yeah.
And people, you know, you have to get in front of people. You have to be persistent. You have to demonstrate that you're there in the marketplace. Because, and I'm sure it's happened to me. And as I said earlier, you know, recruiters, you pick up the phone and someone says, "Oh, you should phone me last week. You should phone me last month." But if you're there and there's a consistent message going out to your potential clients, as you say, who are they going to come to? They're going to come to someone that's in constant contact with them, or someone that they don't hear from for 6-12 months.
Yeah. It's a really good point there, Mike, about, you know, expecting somebody that you've never met before, who doesn't know you, you don't know them. And you said in your case, your fees are 25,000, so that's what, 35,000 US dollars, and expecting a complete stranger to go, yeah, sure, because you work on retainers, let me pay you, you know, 10,000 up front as a complete stranger. It's a big ask, isn't it? When you're asking a complete stranger to do that.
Not going to happen in reality.
No.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
like, if you could, sorry, Terry, carry on.
No, go on.
I was going to say, Mike, if you could sort of go back to the old you before you joined our program, when you were sort of doing everything that the typical recruiter is doing today, what advice would you give yourself?
I think short answer is I should have listened to Terry 4 years ago rather than I think the short answer is, I mean, you know, the definition of insanity, isn't it? You keep doing the same thing you're doing and expect different results, so you're going to go around the bend. I think it's a case of, from my point of view, it was a case of I knew I had to change. I knew how to do something different. And it was a question going back 12 months ago, is what on earth do I do? Because I don't know. Is making a decision to say, okay, enough's enough. Let's change. You know, look at where you want your business to be in the next 3 to 5 years, and ask yourself the question: is what I'm doing today going to get me where I want to be in the next 3 to 5 years? And if the answer is no, you have to change something.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, actually.
Yeah. What would you say to people that might listen to this right now who are saying, yeah, everything you've said, guys, makes sense, but I just don't know. They're still indecisive. What would you say to those people, right?
I think it's, from indecision, nothing happens. You know, if you're indecisive, nothing is going to change. And if you don't want anything to change, just keep on doing what you're doing. I think if you're at a point in your business where you're saying, this isn't enough. What I'm doing, it might be getting me by, I might be paying the bills, but am I really building a business? Is what I'm doing now sustainable? And if you're happy with what you're doing, if you don't want to grow your business, you don't want to increase your revenues, then don't change. But if you want to move your business forward, you have to make some changes in your business. And and you know, to be totally open with you, that's sometimes uncomfortable to do. You know, when we first started working together, you know, there was a series of things you were saying, Mike, you've got to do this, you got to do this. And I walked away, I'm thinking, oh, I'm not comfortable doing that. I've never done that before. And I think from working together for coming up to 12 months now, the things that I was uncomfortable doing are now part of my daily routine. And they're not uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons they're not uncomfortable is I'm starting to see the results coming through from them.
That's right. And I think the discomfort, by the way, I think that's quite understandable if you're asked to do something that you haven't done before. And I think the other point you brought up a good point there is, you know, the cost of indecision. So if you're listening to this now, you're still not sure, ask yourself this question: what's it costing you right now being indecisive? And you know, without Mike giving any of his personal numbers away, but you know, I know how much Mike's business has grown, and this is a guy that does retained search whose average fee is 25,000. You know, and every day, every month you leave that indecision, it's actually costing you, because wherever you are now, in comparison to where you want to be, there's a gap, and it would be worth you calculating what that gap is and what that's costing you month after month. If you're still going to remain indecisive about doing something. And by the way, I'm not making any bold claims that we can do everything for everybody, so that to be clear, and obviously we can't. But what I would say is, if you've got any doubt whatsoever, if you want to find out more, you know, please go to terryedwards.com/apply and book a call with one of our team. We can go through it with you, and we can share with you some things you can do to close that gap between where you are now and where you want to be. Because clearly, if you don't do anything, you're going to remain where you are right now, and that gap is going to remain.
So, Mike, what's been or who's been the biggest influence on your entrepreneurial journey? So, right from when you started to now, not including me and Terry.
Oh, of course. I don't want to leave you question. I suppose going back many years, I suppose it was my father. I mean, my father was a head teacher, and he had this tremendous work ethic, and this is going back, you know, to when I was a young child, and he was always saying to me, you know, you work hard, you put in the hours, you'll get something out of it. And I suppose that's where things started, where I've always worked hard and I've always put in the hours. Sometimes without result.
So was that just before the First World War we would talk about here when we say your childhood?
Going back in Crimea War, actually. So were the days when we didn't have television.
I know them well, Mike. Know them well.
And I suppose then, you know, I left school at 16, and I did incredibly well at school, but I hated the place, and I just wanted to get out and earn some money. And I had a series of low-paid jobs, and when I was 19, I left one job and set up my first company, which was great and failed abysmally after a couple of years. But at that point, I was thinking, actually, well, you know, there's a lot to be said for, you know, having control of your own destiny. I then had in and out of a couple of jobs and worked for a couple of people. And I suppose even at that young age, having worked for yourself and had that freedom to do what you wanted to do was very appealing and attractive to me. And what I started to do, probably in my early 20s, was start to explore where can you get the resources from? You know, if you want to be successful, if you want to grow your own business in whatever field that is, where can you get the resources from? And somebody introduced me many years ago to Zig Ziglar, and I started listening to, in the days before CDs and iPlayers and iPads, cassettes of Zig Ziglar on my car journey to and from work. And that really got me started thinking that, you know, this, you know, if you're going to be successful, you've got to take control of your own life. You have to make some decisions, and decisions that some people say, well, what are you doing that for? Why do you want to leave this great job and go and work for yourself for? You've got a car, you've got a pension, you're going to risk it all. And then now some people say, well, oh, it must be great, you've got your own business. Oh, well, lucky guy you are. And you think, well, yeah, but they don't see all the downsides and the hassle that goes with it. So, but that's been a long process throughout so many years in terms of getting to a point where, you know, where I am at the moment, and you know, not finished yet. Despite my advancing years, I've still got a lot more to go.
Yeah, I'm going to say just on Zig Ziglar, because I'm a big fan of Zig Ziglar. One of his quotes that I absolutely, he's got lots of great quotes, by the way. And by the way, those that don't know, Zig Ziglar is a motivational speaker. Sadly, he's passed away now, and sales trainer. But one of his quotes was, people say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. And I just love that quote. Absolutely love that quote. Yeah, but yeah, I'm also a big fan of Zig Ziglar. Great guy.
So, Mike, one of the things that you mentioned there was that the first sort of company you had sort of failed after 2 years or so. But what's been sort of the biggest failure that you've had in business? And more importantly, what was the lessons that you learned from it?
The biggest failure I've had in business? I think the biggest failure I had in business, this is going back many years. Before coming into the financial services and recruitment, I had at the time, this was back in the mid-late 80s, a very successful contract furnishing company, employing about 10 people. And we manufactured curtains and blinds. We had some contracts, some very large contracts. I was fortunate enough to fit and make all of the curtains for the Sultan of Brunei's house when he bought a place in Hampstead, which was incredibly lucrative, and I'd never seen a place like this. And a great business, thoroughly enjoyed it. And we'd done a very large project for a local builder. I was based in Cheltenham at the time, and sunk a lot of money into that. And I'm driving to work one morning, and on the local radio, it announced that this builder had gone into liquidation. And I thought, got into work, tried to get hold of the builder, no answer to the phones, managed to get hold of one of the guys who was one of the directors, and he said, Mike, he said, you ain't going to get your money. And I said, but we've, you know, all this stuff that we've done, it was for they were a building contractor for a doctor's surgery, and we'd fitted out all the interior furnishings for it. And so I went to the doctor's surgery, and I said, I'm going to take the stuff out. And the doctor said, well, you can't, because your contract isn't with us, it's with the builder. And I thought, okay. Spoke to my accountant, and he said, Mike, he said, as a business, if without that money, you're technically insolvent. I can't give you any advice because you can't pay me. I know. So I went back, sent everybody home, closed the business. Which, with hindsight, I could have, knowing what I know now, I could have probably got through that. But at the time, young, naive, and without any support and professional advice, walked away from it, and walked away from there with a chunk of personal debt, which wasn't pleasant. A learning experience, but hey ho.
So yeah, what would you have done differently if you could go back?
I think I could have probably refinanced the company. I think it was a relatively small company by comparison, but I think there could have been ways out of it from a financing point of view. I could have potentially worked my way out of it, but I think at the time, the thing that really frustrated me is the accountant I had at the time. I paid a huge amount of money to over the course of 3 or 4 years. As soon as he knew he wasn't going to get 1 month's fee, he was just saying, "Well, I don't have anything to do with you anymore." And that was tough. But you put that. I think you look back on those things now, and you put that down to experience. Because if I'd have got through that, I probably wouldn't have ended up in recruitment.
Yeah.
And we would never have met Mike.
Would have been tragic, Terry.
Precisely. Precisely. Excellent. And Drew asked a great question about, the advice you'd give to a younger you. What advice would you give to any recruitment and search firm owner who's facing the challenges that you were facing just over a year ago?
I think for me, it would be you need to start doing things differently, and also to start working with somebody. And we work together, and a member of your elite group. But one of the things that's been a benefit to me, and still is having someone to hold you accountable. And it's okay, you sit in your office, an independent recruiter, who hold you hold yourself accountable. But sometimes I think the benefits of working with a coach is someone say to you, Mike, I'm going to phone you back in 2 weeks, and these are the things that you've committed to do, and I'm going to check in with you in 2 weeks' time to make sure that you've done them.
Yeah.
And that for me is a huge benefit. Is having that relationship where there is someone who holds you accountable over and above what you hold yourself accountable for.
Right. To summarize that, you'd say to somebody, get some accountability, and I totally get that again. What I'd also add to that, Mike, is that as a business owner, because we own the business, we're not answerable to anybody. We're not accountable to anybody, are we, really? So we can say that we're going to do whatever it is we say we're going to do, not do it, and nobody ever knows really, apart from ourselves. And and again, you might be listening thinking, yeah, well, you're bound to say that. This is about making yourself accountable to Drew and I. But find somebody out there that can help you. If you want to get to wherever you want to get to, there's somebody that can help you achieve what it is you want to achieve. Just find somebody out there that can help you and create that accountability. I think it's a really, really good point there, Mike. Thanks for that. Excellent. Drew.
What about books? What's been sort of the best book on business that you've ever read and you'd recommend everyone to read?
I think the one book which I've just completed for me, and it's again something that you guys have recommended is the 12-week year.
Yeah.
And that, I've read hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of business books, like I'm sure most people in business have. Some good, some bad, some indifferent. I think for me, the one thing that the 12-week year has given me, and that's in combination with the session that we ran at the last our last meeting, was getting that structure into your day and working on those. And again, the 12-week year is, instead of working on yearly goals, you're working on 12-week goals for people who haven't read it. And the power of that is that you've got 12 weeks to accomplish a certain amount of things. Whereas if you're working on a 12-month goal, you get halfway through the year and you haven't achieved it, you think, well, I've still got another 6 months to go. And then November time, well, a couple of months, I've got to start working. Whereas if you're breaking things down into 12 weeks, it instills a sense of urgency. And for me, that's, okay, it's not just a case of reading the book. And for me, it's now applying the principles in that book. In the last, I'm 4 weeks into utilizing the principles of that, and I still haven't got it right.
Yeah.
But honing that, for me, my productivity in the last 4 weeks has increased significantly. And also, the other thing is it's actually freed up more of my time from managing me more effectively.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's a good shout, actually, Mike. The 12-week year. One thing that it encourages you as a reader to get more done in 12 weeks than most people achieve in a whole year. And yeah, you literally break down your goals into 12 weeks. So a week becomes a month, so to speak. And some of the things that it's talking there is about, it's not lack of knowledge that's a problem, it's a lack of execution. Every day counts. And it really gets you to think differently, doesn't it, Mike, about what you're doing, where you're spending your time.
I think it causes you to actually, excuse me, it causes you to question what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And having a structure to your day and I'm using in conjunction with the 12-week year the self journal that we talked about. Yeah. It causes you to break down a day into I suppose bite-sized chunks, to block your day out, and you know that between 9 and 10 you've got to be doing these things. Between 10 and 12 you're doing these things, and it might sound prescriptive, but it works. And from a productivity point of view, it's made in 4 weeks, as for me, has made a huge difference.
Yeah, and to add to that as well, Mike, I think that's really important. You even block out your distractions. So you might think, actually, do you know what? I'm going to faff about on LinkedIn or Facebook for 10 or 15 minutes. But blocking everything out and planning everything in, you're absolutely right. It dramatically improves your productivity. And everybody that we work with, in fact, we've never worked with a client who said, yeah, actually, I've applied the 12-week year and I'm getting less done. Everybody that we work with, they say, I applied the 12-week year and we're now getting more done. It's, yeah, well worth getting it. The book's called The 12-Week Year. Drew, help me out on this. Is it Brian?
Brian P. and Michael Lane. So it's just here on the corner of my desk because we were talking.
Oh, brilliant. That's it. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Yeah, excellent. Yeah, good shout. Yeah, one of my favourite books as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sorry, Drew. I think you're about to talk now. So.
No, I have no more questions.
Yeah,
you?
Mike, that was brilliant. No, some real lessons there. I think if you summarise what we get from this is that here's a guy with 20 years in the industry. Let me repeat, 20 years, not some novice. And I know you find that very hard to believe because Mike's so youthful looking, but yeah, absolutely true. 20 years. But seriously, Mike, works at the senior level, so his average fee is 25,000 pounds, that is. So 35,000 US dollars. All Mike's work's is done on a retained basis. Yeah. He talked about the fact that I literally stalked him for 4 years, and the lesson is that, as I said before, your clients will buy from you when they're ready to buy, not when you're ready to sell. But we just don't know when it is, and that's why relentless marketing works, because the clients come to you when they're ready, when you're the forefront of your mind. Mike shared about the fact he was using 2 or 3 ways of getting business, and now uses. I think he gave about 8 different ways. He talked in particular about using direct mail, which, by the way, as I said at the time, none of your competitors are doing right now. And just doing that alone, you're going to stand above your crowd. And if you think, oh, that's old hat or whatever, what we always say is test it. And Mike gave a great example. Mike tested it with 50 organizations. But with those 50 organizations, he was able to win £50,000 worth of retained business. Let me repeat that. £50,000 worth of retained business just by testing it. He talked about just basically about client attraction, and Mike was, and I really appreciate as well, Mike, your total honesty there. Mike's made mistakes. Hey, who hasn't? Mike shared with us some of the mistakes that he's made on his business life, and we all have, and had our fingers burnt. You talked about the problem of indecision, about what indecision can cost you. If you've got any doubts about getting some help, to ask yourself the question what it's costing you. Great shout there on that book, Mike, 12-Week Year, and also on Zig Ziglar, as someone that's been a great influence here. I really appreciate the insight, Mike, and also, yeah, your honesty, very much appreciated. Look, if you're listening to this, you're thinking, yeah, but my difference is different. Who knows? I don't think it is, by the way. But look, go to terryedwards.com/apply and book a meeting with one of our team on the phone. We'll sit down with you. We'll look at exactly what you're doing in your business, where you are right now, and we'll share with you how to get to where you want to get to. There's no cost. There's no obligation. Simply go to terryedwards.com/apply and book a telephone meeting with one of our team. You want to get access to something that Mike's doing, so he never ever cold calls. He's only calling clients that know him and the market for what he's doing. Go to terryedwards.com/apply. Anything you want to add, Drew, before I just sign off?
No.
Yeah, Mike, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, you're a star.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
That's all. That's a pint of beer that I owe you again. Again. Very much. This is Terry Edwards and Drew Edwards. Until next time, take care take action, and be relentless. Cheers, guys.